It's Amaje back here with another video, and today we're about to be reacting to the rise and fall of Family Guy. If there's any show that goes down in history for getting tiresome, and that's Family Guy. I think the plots and everything just got tiring. They did a whole bunch of shit that just made me fucking pissed off at this whole adult cartoon. Uh, I used to watch this when I was a kid, like everybody else used to. Um, man, the Meg stick was getting old. The fucking Herbert the pervert shit was sure getting old and disgusting. The way they approach Quagmire sometimes was getting a little annoying. They just had a lot of shit that just kept getting a lot of old. The show's been canceled like a couple of times. Uh, it's just you just I think it's just that one show you just grow out of, basically.
Seems today that all you see is stale jokes and lifeless characters on what was once our favorite animated TV show. Gone is the good old sharp, unfiltered comedy that made Family Guy a must-watch. It wasn't always this way. When the show first premiered, it was bold, daring, and unlike anything else on television, but as the years passed, cracks began to show. At first, fans ignored them, but as the seasons dragged on, the decline became impossible to overlook. So what went wrong? How did Family Guy fall off? Let's find out. Sucks. When the show first premiered in 1999, admittedly the world of adult animation was a whole lot different from what we have today. The TV series scene was dominated by a few other impressive names. The Simpsons was still in its golden age, and South Park was making waves with its own brand of humor and controversy. This was the environment Family Guy stepped into as the brash new kid on the block. While it was initially inspired by The Simpsons, Family Guy quickly carved out its own identity. It was faster, meaner, and packed with rapid-fire, self-aware humor loaded with pop culture references that felt both nostalgic and subversive. Its edgy style was unlike anything else on TV. Another unique aspect of the show was its cutaway gags. These were short, unrelated skits that delivered quick laughs and became a defining feature of its identity. Even though the show was off to a promising start,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the show used to be way funnier back in the early days. Like, bro, there's clips that just still surface around Instagram and other things that just gets me just laughing. Um, I mean, the fart things were never funny, probably when I was a kid, but the fart things were crazy funny probably when I was a kid. Yeah, I can see that. But nowadays, it's just never. It's just not funny. It's just corny now. But the show was pretty funny in its early days. It just got up here all the way down here and went in a fucking toilet.
Family Guy faced a premature demise. Fox canceled the series in 2002 after just 3 seasons because of its low ratings and controversy. However, the show didn't stay dead for long. Reruns on Adult Swim became incredibly popular, bringing in new fans. At the same time, DVD sales soared, proving there was still a huge demand for the show. Recognizing this overwhelming popularity, Fox brought back Family Guy. This was virtually unheard of at the time, making one of the first major TV revivals driven entirely by fan support. Seasons 4 through 8 saw Family Guy at its peak, delivering some of its most memorable episodes, some of which are my favorites, such as PTV, Hell Comes to Quahog, Blue Harvest, Lois Kills Stewie, Road to the Multiverse, etc. The humor remained at an all-time high, the satire felt fresh, and the characters, while exaggerated, still maintained depth and likability.
Yeah, I like Stewie's character in the early seasons. It was pretty evil. He was fleshed out well. I liked him and Brian's dynamic because they meshed well. And I think they were the funniest niggas on Family Guy. Nowadays, but I feel like they just made Stewie so sus. Why does a baby need that many adult kind of gay jokes? It ain't nothing wrong with being gay, but why do you already have to identify that on a baby that's one? I mean, I get he's super fucking smart, but he's still a baby.
What made the early seasons work so well was the balance between crazy humor and good storytelling. Peter was a goofy, fun-loving dad and not a complete sociopath. Brian was the smart, sarcastic one, not an annoying hypocrite. Stewie was a little evil genius, not just a random joke machine. Chris was the lovable, dim-witted teen, not a total afterthought. Also, while Meg was always the family outcast, her struggles at least felt somewhat relatable. The Griffins felt like a real, if messy, family. Dysfunctional, but still something we could connect with. By 2010, Family Guy had become one of the biggest animated shows of all time, a cultural phenomenon with dedicated fans, strong ratings, and widespread influence. The cracks began to form. Season 8 was the tipping point where the show began its slow descent, but it still had flashes of what it used to be. Season 9, on the other hand, is where the rot fully set in, and Family Guy took a very dark turn. Plot lines became abrupt, jokes grew mean-spirited, and there was an increasing amount of unnecessary gore. It was clear the show had gone off the rails in a big way. One of the biggest signs that revealed that the show was starting to lose it was
I feel like this goes with like we can put anything out there, they'll just eat it up because like it's been going so good so far, but that shit can only go a long ass way for like a couple of more years until niggas start getting tired of that shit. When you have to catch yourself and go back to putting more into the writing, like you can hire new writers or something, especially if they're not like getting up to par with the like well with whatever like the ratings are doing. But like yeah, you kind of right there. They did a lot of gore.
when they began relying more on shock humor. Instead of coming up with fresh ideas, it just kept repeating the same tricks, even after they stopped being funny. Cutaway gags, which were once a fun surprise, started feeling random and out of place. They had nothing to do with the story, and the jokes leaned more on being offensive than actually being clever. The show's once unique style became predictable. They still switched things up sometimes, but the old "this is worse than that time when" formula didn't hit the same way it used to. Another big mistake was how they stopped using smart, sharp satire like before.
Maybe I come around.
Side note, I'm sorry, they'll never catch up to The Simpsons as like a great show. I feel like The Simpsons is just like a well fleshed out show, even though it kind of slowed down nowadays. That's because it's been on for so many years now. But even though it kind of slowed down nowadays when they switch a lot of writers and everything, but you will never catch up to The Simpsons run. Like they had a run longer than like 10 seasons, and those seasons were so great. My sister likes The Simpsons, and like she kind of like got me hooked on that when I was like watching those like DVDs when I used to go over to my other sister's house, and that shit used to be always hilarious.
But instead of using humor to expose societal flaws, the show resorted to gross out gags, excessive violence, and long, awkward bits that dragged on far past their welcome. The decline in the quality of the show could also be traced to terrible character development. In the beginning, Peter was the simple-minded protagonist, with many episodes centered around his misogynistic and idiotic escapades, with the outcome always being that he learned his lesson in the end. But in later seasons, Peter has now become a straight-up idiot, and the situations that he gets himself into make his character, in some cases, cruel-minded and a danger to all around him. And so, Peter, a once lovable idiot, became a reckless, sociopathic man-child who lacked any redeeming qualities and cared nothing about his family.
You have no interest. You just do whatever reckless thing you want to do, whenever you want to do it, without regard for anyone else. And when you're not terrorizing the community with your impulsive escapades, you're being a total jerk to your family. You shove your daughter's face in your
That writing was so fucking good. I love this episode how Meg had to get all her grievances out, everything, just everything out. But the writers had to go back on everything to like make it her fault. I fucking hate that little tidbit in that little episode. Like I thought like everything was about to kind of change, and Meg was about to become like a little of much of a big like better character instead of a punching bag. I like Meg as a character, like probably better than Peter and Lois, and even Chris.
ass and you fart on it.
Brian used to be the voice of reason in the family, though he had his flaws. But over time, he turned into an unbearable hypocrite who constantly acted like he was better than everyone else. Things even got worse in season 12 when Brian was suddenly killed off. The Griffin family mourned him and even got a new dog, but just a few episodes later, they brought Brian back using time travel, completely undoing everything. This left fans confused because it seemed like the show was making a big change, only to go right back to how things were. I don't think I can forgive them for what they did to my boy Stewie. Stewie, whose original charm came from his grandiose villainous schemes, was reduced to a merely comic relief character. His once brilliant persona watered down into bland, generic humor. Meg remained the punching bag of the series, but by this point, the jokes at her expense felt more cruel than comedic. If we take a look at the side characters, their decline is just as evident. Joe at first was a really tough yet cool character who wasn't treated like a lesser person because of his disability. But as the show deteriorated, Joe went from a decorated cop whose disability doesn't hinder him to a weak, pathetic caricature that let Bonnie cheat constantly while he verbally degrades himself. Cleveland
That's kind of fucked up. I seen what the little quote unquote gag that they had going on with Joe in some of the recent episodes. They like literally like imagine him like offing himself and he knows what Bonnie's thinking all the time. It's fucked up.
was removed from Family Guy for his own spin-off, only to return after the Cleveland show flopped. Yet, instead of integrating the growth and experiences he had on his own show,
Sorry, another sidebar. I fucking love the Cleveland show. I don't care about the low ratings. I like it better than Family Guy.
Family Guy treated him as if nothing had changed, leaving his character stagnant. Then there's Quagmire, whose perversions were always extreme but at least somewhat balanced by glimpses of depth. The show has explored his traumatic past and moments of character growth, but these are immediately undone in the next episode, reverting him to the same one-note creep as before. The decline didn't go unnoticed. Both fans and critics pointed out that Family Guy was relying on controversy, then creativity, and were handling serious topics in a disturbingly tone-deaf way. An example of this was the episode Screams of Silence, the story of Brenda Q, 2011, which portrayed Quagmire's sister, who was a victim of domestic abuse. The backlash intensified as longtime viewers saw a show that once thrived on pushing boundaries in an intelligent way to turn into a parody of itself. To make matters worse, Family Guy's creator, Seth MacFarlane, seemed to have lost interest in the series. He originally wanted the show to end at season 7, believing it had run its course. By the early 2010s, his focus had shifted toward other projects like American Dad. This newer project received more of his attention, and Family Guy suffered as a result of this. Seth was also invested in voicing Ted, and he was involved in more.
Yeah, I can see where he put in some more work for American Dad because I fucking love American Dad. Like I could see where he put in more work from that from just like Family Guy because like you can literally see where Family Guy deteriorated and you can see where American Dad went up after that.
More ambitious endeavors like Cosmos, a space-time odyssey. Due to his overwhelming schedule, he even had to abandon a passion project, a reboot of the Flintstones, and so, with having to juggle all of these, Family Guy, once his brainchild, had become an obligation rather than a passion, and that lack of enthusiasm was reflected in the show itself. The effects of this disinterest became even more evident in later seasons, particularly around seasons 18 and 19. By then, the production crew seemed to have checked out entirely. Episodes began recycling plot points from earlier seasons, jokes became painfully bland, and even the voice acting felt bland.
Yes. Hero, I'll be a hero, and then they'll have to make me Customer of the Week.
Why is this story all about Mom this week? What, are we giving Seth's voice a rest?
Basically, the show lacked the energy and sharpness that once made it stand out in adult animation. Honestly, the problems didn't stop there. Another major complete loss issue was the loss of structural cohesion. Classic Family Guy episodes built their humor around a solid narrative framework where jokes were designed to enhance the plot. In contrast, modern Family Guy episodes feel like disjointed sketches barely held together by a loose premise. Instead of telling a real story, episodes are now like a bunch of random comedy skits with no real character growth or ongoing continuity. By 2015, Family Guy was still pulling in decent ratings, but longtime fans knew the show had lost its edge. The early seasons felt like an entirely different series compared to what it had become. Was Family Guy the clever sitcom that played with classic tropes, or the one that took pride in tearing them apart? It never fully committed to one identity, and the drastic shift between these styles made it feel like two different shows under the same name. Ironically, Family Guy is often its own harshest critic, regularly pointing out its continuity errors, unbalanced writing staff, and limited animation. While its self-awareness can be entertaining, it doesn't excuse the show's decline. If anything, acknowledging these flaws without fixing them only makes their persistence even more frustrating. Family Guy might not be what it used to be.
Family Guy is still on a downward spiral. I feel like there's just no revival for this show. It feel like it just needs to just be like a good subtle end to it. Like Fox just need to put a pin in it because there's so many episodes to just rewatch for them to just throw on to like reruns, and that's pretty much it. But hey, I'm not even an active Family Guy watcher anymore. I'm more of American Dad and more of like a better adult channel. Adult shows better. like Rick and Morty and shit. Even that became like kind of down tiered in like the recent. Well, I don't know. I like the recent seasons, but I guess not. A lot of people liked it. But if you guys want to see more videos like this, like and subscribe. And we on the road to 200. Don't forget to hit that sub button. But catch you guys later.